So eating with the eyes is a journey. It's a visual journey, stretching back 30 years of my life, really. And it's a search for a meaning or a sense of meaning in the ordinary. And on that search, which happened with a strange little event back in my childhood, which I'll describe in a minute, I've come to realize that there are no accidents, that there are only ideas trying to find you. And my life as a graphic designer, you can imagine, is a kind of daily, constant hunt for ideas in my work. This is the little village where I grew up called France Lynch in Gloucestershire. And it's one of the smallest villages in England. And I had a pretty idyllic time of it, running around in the fields and the valleys around there. But one day when I was about 8 or 9 years old, I was down in the woods playing with a few friends. And there were some older boys around with a very powerful air rifle, and being kind of partly bullied and partly trying to stand up with a bit of kind of bravado, these guys said to me, you've got to take this gun and shoot something. And I was half frightened and, as I say, trying to kind of stand up to it. So I took the gun, and a bird flew across and into a tree, and I turned and I shot, and I hit this bird. And the bird fell through the tree and hung between two branches, and its head kind of collapsed on its chest. And in a split second, I was so appalled at what I'd done. I mean, I was just absolutely devastated by it. And I kind of ran off and never spoke about it. And that image of the kind of crucified bird has remained with me ever since. And the only person I ever told about this was my father a few years later. And he was rightly appalled. And a few years later after that, so I was in kind of my early teens, he gave me this camera, saying that wouldn't it be better to shoot pictures than birds and animals. And actually it remained a kind of secret of mine for all my life, and I only actually admitted to this a year or two ago, at this awful thing that I'd done. And I started photographing things, and the sort of stuff I photographed were odd things around the place. And they are strange for most people. Most people looked at my book and said it's actually kind of rather odd that you should kind of record these casual little events in streets. And I've been doing it for so long. They're from all over the world. So this is a little shot I took in the back street in Naples, and it's nothing more than the memory of the life of the chain, that the little rust mark on the wall is this beautiful kind of memoir. And this was a fleeting moment in a town called Shum Sha Po near Hong Kong. And I was just passing this place and it was a fire station, and these doors were just opening, and I just caught it in this fleeting moment. So a lot of these images are of things that will be gone a few moments later. But for me, they're real fodder for ideas. Again, this is actually in Beijing in a huton, and it's just some bricks that have been left by people. And there's just a beautiful kind of poetry to the casual nature of these things just almost unconsciously being piled there. But for me, I thought they had this wonderful, almost artistic quality to them. This was also in Beijing, and this was just some fishing rods that had been left. And many things that are about things being left, and it's the memory of something else. But the rhythm and the energy by which they'd been just left there, and the rhythm of the colours and the shirts, there was a wonderful sort of unconscious beauty in it, I think. This is in Chicago. This is just the ghosts of posters that were once put on a wall. This is just some dust that remains after cupboards have been removed from a corner of a room. And this is in a graveyard in Havana, and it's the absence of the crucifix that's so poignant. I just found it moving. So they're damaged things. They're the kind of rubbish and the leftover. But there's a beautiful something else, something kind of unspoken, a story beyond the thing that you see. This is a collapsed roof, and just the kind of rhythm of the nails left in the beams are almost like a people in Exodus or something. Some things are just funny, that people couldn't be bothered to put things back right. And this is back in Naples again, actually. It's just, and it just makes you smile, because you just can imagine the moment when they went, fuck it, and just stuck it back in. This is in Hong Kong in a back street, and it's just maybe a worker's clothes was on there once, but it's sort of an outdoor wardrobe. This is in Rishikesh in India, and it's an enormous field with just this store sitting in the middle of the grass, and it's almost as if it's a portal to another state. And this picture originally had a pair of very frightening dogs. And I kind of walked down the street, and when I came back they'd gone, and it seemed even more intriguing that the fact that they weren't there, and where the hell were they? This is in Hong Kong. This is underneath one of the enormous kind of roadways, and it's nothing but concrete, salt, and damp course, but it's like a beautiful abstract painting. And again, there were 3 men sitting on these chairs in Naples when I originally took the first shot. When I came back, they'd gone. And the wonderful kind of combination of these kind of slightly crazy chairs had as much spirit in them as the men that were sitting there talking on the street corner. I mean, nothing's been moved. It's just exactly as they left it. And all of these pictures have nothing of me in them. I mean, I don't change or alter anything. I just capture what I can of what's there. This was something that I saw when I was working at the Royal Academy. It's literally a sculpture that had been covered up while they redecorated a gallery. But there's almost more poignancy in the fact that it's got this plastic sheet over it. And so on. This is just the remains of where boards have been removed for a wall. The casual dropping of coins in a fountain. The kind of tearing of a poster of a separation of a child from an adult. Again, back in Hong Kong. And in Beijing. And Beijing seems to me the city of mops. If any of you have been there, there are just mops everywhere. And this one was just casually left in a little bed of flowers, but it actually had a green top, so it actually looked like it'd been growing like the rest. Some are just sexy. This is in Delhi, and it's an old fascia that had been removed, and someone had moved the letters along and just made the word Dada, and it's just the most perfect, actually, metaphor for the book. Back in the Royal Academy, an exhibition had been removed, and these things were just left after it, and they almost seemed like an installation in their own right. These are these are in the backyard of a Weiwei's studio, and I don't know if you know the sculpture called Straight that he made out of all the amazing, all the support rods that he took. These are all the leftover rods that are just piled up in his backyard, and they're almost like a Pollock painting. But actually, there's an enormous story behind this, if you know the story of Straight. So this is a little something I stole from the Kabbalah, which just says, what you'll see will pass away, but that you have seen will not. And so much of these are about that for me. And this is a few little stories of how they actually affect my work. So this is a glove I shot in an Italian building site, just because it just felt so poignant. And I was asked to create an identity for an exhibition on British sculpture at the Royal Academy. And this is one of the pieces in the show. And I think they really wanted me to use classic images of things like the Moors and the whatever. But this is a Boyle, family Boyle sculpture called Olaf Street. And it just seemed to have a relationship with that. So all I did for the show was take this as the image and bury the title of the show, just like the glove had been buried in the other one. I worked on a project in Abu Dhabi on an identity for the cultural quarter of the city, and I knew so little about the Arab world and felt very uncomfortable as a Westerner going there to create this international identity for them. So they allowed me to take some time and to try and understand. I did a lot of things in a very short period of time, but I spent 3 days living with Bedouin in the desert. These are actual camel racers, none of which could speak English. So I spent a long time walking on my own in the desert, and I came across this bag of cement, which is kind of strange and just torn, but I love the way the Western type was kind of pushing up and integrating with the Arabic script. And when it came to this enormous site in the middle of Abu Dhabi, I had to create a 10-meter high and a 2-mile long hoarding. I used Arabic poetry and worked with an amazing calligrapher there who created these incredible scripts, and we just integrated the Western type in the same way, and it entirely came from that shot I found of a bag of cement. This is in Africa, in a little square in a town, and this wonderful Bob Marley quote, who stole it from someone else. I just thought, and it was just done in such haste. So me as a designer, as a typographer, I had such pleasure in the fact that they'd not quite made the T's and the E's fit. There's plenty of space, by the way, if you do a bit of. and it's just wonderful because you feel the passion in it. This is a book I used it for a book cover. The D&AD are the kind of one of the world's great bodies for creating awards and creating a kind of a judgment scheme for design and advertising particularly. And they asked me to do a cover, so I thought this would be a really nice way of pointing the finger back at at our industry. This is a shot I took in Delhi again, and I used the same inspiration for a book cover for Phaidon. This is called Graphic Agitation. I did nothing other than splash in a very agitated state, paint all over a wall and just use it. But it's entirely from found stuff from the streets. So I started collecting these things and making them into little catalogues of all sorts of notes and ideas from all over the place. And they're nothing but apparent kind of chaos and rubbish, I guess. So this is a piece of film. Though I'm a graphic designer, I don't read much about graphic design, but I read a lot about thinkers and makers. And this is one of my great kind of heroes, Suki Hamada from Japan, who was a potter in the 50s and 60s and 70s. And he went back and he worked with Bernard Leach in Cornwall and other mighty figures. And they tried to bring back a true aesthetic of just making and making for the people. And one of the great stories I read about him, and I just love the nature of his thinking, it's very Zen actually, that in his experiments to try and find this perfect way of making pots, he discovered that no matter where he traveled and where he went, he just couldn't quite make the lips of the pots correct. And he went on and on and on, trying and trying and trying harder than ever you can imagine to do this. And he just couldn't get it right. And so the more and more he did it, the less he was able. So he talked to his Zen master, and the Zen master said exactly that you're just trying too hard. And actually the words he used were just don't think about it, but just do it. And he did. He stopped thinking and he just did it. And he just bypassed that, and ever since then it never was an issue. And for me, I often have to kind of struggle to find the answer to ideas, and the more I try, the more I wrestle with things, the further they run away from me quite often. So this book, this series of years of photography, are so much about me just letting things find me, ideas find me, and just being open to the beauty in the somewhat overlooked. There's a real poetic beauty in the chaos around us. So when I was in Tokyo a while ago, I went to a restaurant where my client took me, that I was working with, where Hamada actually ate. And we were having dinner, and this was one of the courses that came out, and it was kind of put in front of me, and I thought it was just so beautiful, and this guy could see that I was in absolute awe of the beauty of it. And he just said to me, "Mida tabaru," which means eating with the eyes, which is what you do with something that's beautiful, that you kind of devour it visually before you put it inside you. So I made the little book, and this is the little book, and the actual word on the outside is the dream of the impossibility of indifference, and that's what I'm trying to live with this. And it seems to have. Oh, so for me there are no accidents. I'm stalling right at the last fence. Only ideas trying to find you. Thank you very much, folks.